My son's bride called me a worthless piece of trash at her own wedding. Grace Parker stood there in her $15,000 dress, pointing at me in front of 300 guests. "You're not just homeless," she announced to the silent Ritz-Carlton ballroom. "You're human garbage. Mental patients like you shouldn't be around decent people." The wedding guests pulled out their phones, started recording. My son Liam just stood there, saying nothing. I didn't flinch, didn't argue, didn't beg for respect. I simply looked at Grace's father tech CEO Michael Parker and gave him the slightest nod. He had no idea that nod would cost him everything. You see, while Grace was busy humiliating me, I was calculating exactly how much her family's empire was worth, and how easily I could take it all away. If you've ever been underestimated, you'll want to hear what happened next. Let me back up and tell you how I ended up at that wedding in the first place. 3 years ago, I was Darius Miller, CEO of Miller Innovations. We had 52 employees, contracts worth $47 million, and patents that would revolutionize mobile computing. Then my wife Helen got cancer. The medical bills destroyed us. $400,000 in 6 months. I sold everything, the house, the cars, my stake in the company. Helen died anyway, and the vultures moved in fast. Michael Parker's lawyers bought my patents for pennies on the dollar while I was planning her funeral. Said it was a distressed asset acquisition. Legal theft, but perfectly documented. I ended up at the Riverside Homeless Shelter on Oak Street, bed number 47. Address 1247 Oak Street, Seattle, Washington. That's what I wrote on all the forms for the next 3 years. 1,247 days on the streets. My son Liam visited twice. Brought his new girlfriend Grace both times. She made it clear I embarrassed him. "Your dad's situation is unfortunate," she'd say, like I had the flu instead of sleeping under bridges. But Grace wanted me at the wedding. Not out of kindness, out of control. She needed everyone to see the contrast. The perfect Parker family versus the broken Miller men. "It'll show Liam where he comes from," she told her friends. I heard her on the phone. Sometimes people need to see failure up close. The wedding was everything Grace dreamed of. Ritz-Carlton Presidential Ballroom. $200,000 for one night. Imported flowers from Holland. A 10-piece orchestra. 300 guests in designer everything. I wore a navy suit from the Salvation Army. $12. The shoes had holes, but I polished them anyway. Grace's entrance was perfect. Vera Wang dress, $15,000. Her father walked her down the aisle. Michael Parker, CEO of Parker Tech Solutions, the man who built his empire on my stolen algorithms. During the ceremony, I watched him beam with pride. His daughter was marrying into a good family. That's what the pastor said. I almost laughed. The reception started smooth. I found a corner table, ate my rubber chicken, stayed invisible. Liam looked handsome in his tux, happy even. Maybe this would work out. Then Grace's maid of honor gave a speech about overcoming obstacles and rising above circumstances. She kept looking at me while she talked. The guests started turning around, following her gaze. That's when Grace decided to make her statement. She walked over to my table, champagne glass in hand, voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to Liam's father." The room went quiet. 300 people, all staring. "This is Darius Miller," she announced. "He used to pretend he was somebody important. Now he lives in a homeless shelter because he couldn't handle real life." Phones came out, started recording. This was going viral for sure. "But that's not the best part," Grace continued, her voice getting louder. "Darius here thinks he deserves respect. Thinks we should treat him like family just because Liam feels sorry for him." Michael Parker was watching from the head table. He could have stopped this. Should have stopped this. Instead, he sat there smiling, letting his daughter humiliate a man who'd already lost everything. "The truth is," Grace said, leaning down so the microphones would catch every word, "some people are just worthless. Natural selection. Darius isn't homeless because of bad luck. He's homeless because he's weak, because he's a failure, because he's exactly where he belongs." The crowd was eating it up. Designer dresses and $1,000 suits, all laughing at the broken man in the corner. "You're not just homeless," Grace said, her final verdict delivered with perfect cruelty. "You're human garbage. Mental patients like you shouldn't be around decent people." You embarrass this family just by breathing." Liam said nothing. My own son standing 10 feet away watching his wife destroy his father for entertainment. That's when I did something that surprised everyone, including myself. I stood up slowly, straightened my $12 jacket, and looked directly at Michael Parker. "Congratulations on your daughter's wedding, Michael," I said quietly. "I'm sure you're very proud of the woman you raised." Then I walked out of that ballroom with every camera following me. Grace thought she'd won, thought she'd finally gotten rid of the embarrassing father-in-law, the homeless burden who reminded everyone where Liam really came from. She had no idea she'd just declared war on the wrong man. Because while Grace was busy humiliating me in public, I was making mental notes. 300 witnesses, dozens of recordings, all the evidence I'd need for what came next. You see, there's something Grace didn't know about those 3 years I spent homeless. Something Michael Parker would have paid millions to keep secret. I hadn't been sitting in that shelter feeling sorry for myself. I'd been working, planning, building something that would change everything. But Grace's social media campaign was about to begin, and she wasn't finished destroying me yet. 2 days after the wedding, my phone rang at 6:47 a.m. Grace's voice was ice cold. "We need to talk, Darius." I was sitting on my cot at the shelter, watching the sunrise through barred windows. Same view I'd had for 3 years. But something felt different that morning. "Good morning, Grace. How's married life?" "Cut the act. You know exactly why I'm calling." She was right. The wedding videos had gone viral. The hashtag #HomelessWeddingCrash was trending on TikTok. Grace's humiliation of me had been viewed 2.3 million times in 48 hours. But the comments weren't what she expected. "These people are sick," Grace snapped. "They're calling me a monster," saying I'm cruel. "They don't understand what you put this family through." I stayed quiet. Let her dig her hole deeper. Liam's been getting calls all morning. His coworkers saw the videos. His boss asked if his family has issues. "Do you know what you've done to his reputation?" "I didn't make those videos, Grace. Your wedding guests did. Because you were there. Because you insisted on showing up and embarrassing everyone." The irony was beautiful. Grace had orchestrated the whole thing, invited me specifically to humiliate me, and now she was furious that people had recorded it. "What do you want, Grace?" "I want you gone. Permanently." Her voice got that dangerous edge I'd heard at the wedding. The sound of someone used to getting exactly what they wanted. "Here's what's going to happen, Darius. You're going to disappear from Liam's life. No more calls. No more visits. No more guilt trips about being his father." "And if I don't?" Grace laughed. Actually laughed. "Then I'll make your life even more miserable than it already is." "You think sleeping in a shelter is bad? I can have you banned from every homeless facility in Seattle. One call to the right people, and you'll be living under freeway overpasses." I listened to her breathe, calculating her next move. "But that's just the beginning," she continued. "I'll have you evaluated by a psychiatrist. Get you declared mentally incompetent. The courts love protecting society from unstable homeless men who stalk families." The threat was real. Grace had resources, connections, lawyers. She could make it happen. "My father knows judges, Darius. City council members. The police chief plays golf at our country club. One restraining order, and you'll be arrested if you come within 500 feet of Liam." "You'd really do that to your husband's father?" "I'd do that to protect my husband from his mistake of a father." There it was, her final verdict. Liam choosing her had been a mistake she intended to correct. "But I'm not unreasonable," Grace said, her voice turning fake sweet. "I'll make you a deal. Disappear quietly, and I'll send you $1,000 a month. Cash. Enough to get a room somewhere, stay out of shelters. Blood money. Payment for agreeing to stop existing. All you have to do is sign a document saying you'll never contact Liam again. Never show up at family events. Never claim to be his father in public." "What does Liam think about this offer?" Silence. Long, telling silence. "Liam doesn't need to think about it. I'm handling this situation. Put him on the phone." "He's not available." "It's 6:47 in the morning, Grace. He's right there." "Liam agrees with me. He's tired of being embarrassed by you. Tired of making excuses for why his father is a homeless failure." I could hear movement in the background, a door closing. She'd left the room, so Liam couldn't hear this conversation. "You have 24 hours to decide," Grace said. "Take the money and disappear, or I'll make sure you regret ever showing up at my wedding. And if I want to talk to my son before I make this decision, your son doesn't want to talk to you. He made his choice at the wedding, remember? He stood there and watched me tell the truth about you. Didn't say one word in your defense. That part hurt, because it was true. Face reality, Darius. Liam has a new life now, a better life, with people who matter. You're just a reminder of where he came from, and where he came from isn't good enough anymore. I looked around the shelter, 47 other men getting ready for another day of invisible existence. Most of them would never climb out of this hole, but I wasn't most of them. I understand perfectly, Grace. Good. I'll have the papers drawn up, 1,000 a month, and you become a ghost. There's just one thing I need to tell you. What? You're about to learn something very important about making assumptions. I could hear her breathing change, uncertainty creeping in. What's that supposed to mean? It means you should have done your research before declaring war. I hung up. For 3 years, I'd let people assume things about me. Let them see the homeless man and stop looking deeper. It was easier that way, safer. But Grace had just crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. She'd threatened to take away the one thing that mattered, my relationship with Liam. Time to show her who she was really dealing with. I walked to the shelter's computer room and logged into an account Grace didn't know existed. An account with a very interesting balance. That's when I made the call that changed everything. The number I dialed belonged to someone Grace Parker had never heard of, but her father definitely had. Google Ventures. This is Jennifer speaking. This is Darius Miller. I need to speak with David Chen about finalizing the acquisition. One moment, Mr. Miller. I was standing in the Seattle Public Library. Same place I'd spent most of my daylight hours for 3 years. The homeless weren't welcome in coffee shops or office buildings, but libraries never turned anyone away. Darius, we've been waiting for your call. David Chen, Senior Vice President of Strategic Acquisitions. We'd been negotiating for 6 months through encrypted emails and proxy meetings. Google wanted my algorithm badly. Are we still good for the $300 million? The board approved it yesterday. When can you sign? Today. But I want the announcement public. Press release, tech blogs, the full treatment. That's unusual for you, Darius. You've been obsessing about anonymity. He was right. For 18 months, I'd insisted on complete secrecy. No publicity, no interviews, no connection to my past life. I'd told Google I was a privacy-focused developer who preferred staying in the shadows. But Grace had just changed my priorities. Things have evolved, David. I'm ready to go public. Outstanding. Can you be here by 3? I looked at my reflection in the library window. Homeless shelter clothes, 3-day stubble, carrying everything I owned in a plastic grocery bag. Not exactly CEO material. I'll need an hour to prepare. After hanging up, I walked 6 blocks to Nordstrom. The security guard followed me inside. Homeless people made expensive stores nervous, but they couldn't throw me out for looking poor. I need a suit, I told the first salesperson who'd speak to me. Today. Budget is $5,000. She looked me up and down, clearly skeptical. Sir, our suits start at $1,200. I pulled out a credit card. This should cover it. The card was linked to a development account I'd kept active throughout my homeless years. $12,000. Everything I'd made freelancing while living in the shelter. 2 hours later, I was sitting in Google's Seattle office, wearing a charcoal gray Armani suit and signing the largest technology acquisition of the year. The algorithm is revolutionary, David was explaining to the media team. Neural network optimization for mobile devices. It'll increase processing speed by 47% while using 30% less battery. He didn't know I'd developed it on public library computers while homeless people slept around me. Didn't know I'd tested it on a burner phone bought with food stamp money. Where did this technology come from? Asked the tech reporter from GeekWire. I looked directly into the camera. Sometimes the most important innovations come from the most unexpected places. The paperwork took 3 hours. Patents, US 10,847,329 through US as 10,847,335. 7 algorithms that would power the next generation of smartphones. Google was buying exclusive rights worldwide. Final price, $300 million. Wire transfer to Wells Fargo. Account ending in 8847. Confirmation received at 4:23 p.m., June 17, 2024. I was no longer homeless. But more importantly, I was no longer powerless. The first thing I did was research Parker Tech Solutions, Michael Parker's company, built on my stolen patents from 3 years ago. Current valuation, $1.2 billion. Stock price, $83 per share. 73% of their mobile division was based on algorithms stolen from my original company. Algorithms that were now legally mine again, thanks to some very expensive patent lawyers. Grace had made one critical mistake in her ultimatum call. She'd threatened to destroy me using her father's connections and resources. She had no idea her father's entire empire was built on technology I'd invented. I made my second call of the day. Morrison, Klein & Associates, Intellectual Property Division. This is Darius Miller. I need to sue someone for patent infringement. The damages are going to be substantial. How substantial, Mr. Miller? Conservative estimate? $47 million in direct damages. Maybe twice that with punitive awards. And you have proof of the infringement? I have the original source code, development logs, and 3 years of stolen profits. Plus, Google's acquisition validates the patent's value. We can file by tomorrow morning. Perfect. And I want media coverage, full transparency. Let the world see exactly what Parker Tech built their fortune on. By 6 p.m., I was sitting in a furnished apartment I'd rented for $8,500 per month. The paperwork was signed, the lawsuit was filed, and Michael Parker was about to learn who he'd really stolen from. But Grace still thought I was sleeping in a homeless shelter, counting her blood money. Liam thought that was the biggest surprise I had in store. He had no idea what was coming next. I called Liam at 7:30 a.m. the next morning. Dad, how did you get this number? Grace had made him change his phone number after the wedding. Didn't want me harassing them with calls. But finding people is easy when you have $300 million and good lawyers. We need to meet. Today. I can't, Grace says. Grace doesn't get a vote in this conversation. Parker Tech headquarters, lobby, noon. Dad, you can't just show up at my work. Security won't even let you in the building. They'll let me in. How could you possibly? Because I own 23% of the company your wife's father built. Silence. Long, confused silence. What are you talking about? Noon, Liam. Don't be late. I hung up before he could ask more questions. Let him spend the morning wondering if his homeless father had finally lost his mind completely. At 11:45, I walked into Parker Tech's 47-story glass tower, wearing a $3,000 suit and carrying a leather briefcase. The security desk didn't even blink. Darius Miller to see Liam Miller, I told the receptionist. He's expecting me. Liam arrived at exactly noon, looking nervous and confused. He barely recognized me. Dad? What? How did you... New clothes, same father? I gestured toward the elevators. Let's talk somewhere private. We can use the conference room on 12. As we rode up, Liam kept staring at my suit, my briefcase, my general appearance of not being homeless anymore. Dad, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Go ahead. Are you having some kind of breakdown? Because showing up here dressed like this, claiming you own part of the company, Grace is worried you might be having delusions. The elevator opened on 12. Corner conference room, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay. I'd been in rooms like this before Grace destroyed my life. Sit down, son. Liam sat across from me, still looking worried, still thinking his father had snapped. I opened the briefcase and pulled out a single sheet of paper. Bank statement from Wells Fargo, dated yesterday. Read the balance. Liam looked down at the paper. His face went white. This says $299,700,000. Google bought my patents yesterday, $300 million for 7 algorithms I developed while living in that homeless shelter. That's impossible. I pulled out the second document. Google's press release, already live on TechCrunch and Wired. Google acquires revolutionary mobile AI technology from independent developer Darius Miller, Liam read aloud. Largest patent acquisition of 2024. His hands were shaking now. Dad, I don't understand. You've been homeless for 3 years. How could you develop anything? How could you even... Public libraries have excellent computers. And when you have nothing else to do for 18 hours a day, you get very focused on solving problems. Liam looked up from the documents. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wasn't ready. And because I needed to see who you really were when you thought I had nothing. That hit him hard. Good. It was supposed to. At your wedding, you watched your wife humiliate me in front of 300 people. You said nothing. Did nothing. Let her call me human garbage while you stood there in your tuxedo. Grace was upset. She didn't mean She meant every word, and so did you by staying silent. I pulled out the third document. The patent lawsuit, filed this morning against Parker Tech Solutions. Your father-in-law built his company on technology he stole from me 3 years ago. $47 million in damages, plus punitive awards. Liam's face went from white to gray. You're suing Grace's father? I'm recovering what he took from me. What he took from you, actually, since you're my son. Dad, please. This will destroy Grace's family. Can't we just what? Pretend it never happened? Like you pretended not to hear your wife call me worthless? Liam looked out at the Seattle skyline, probably calculating how many ways this could ruin his marriage. Grace doesn't know yet, does she? Grace is about to learn several things she doesn't know. I stood up, leaving the documents on the table. I need to speak with your father-in-law immediately. Michael Parker's office was everything you'd expect from a tech CEO who'd built his empire on stolen patents. Floor 45, panoramic view of Puget Sound, furniture that cost more than most people's cars. He looked surprised when I walked in, but not alarmed. Liam had called ahead, said his father needed 5 minutes to discuss a business opportunity. Michael still saw the homeless man from the wedding. Even in my expensive suit, he couldn't quite process that I belonged in his office. Darius, good to see you looking better. He gestured to a leather chair across from his desk. Liam said you wanted to discuss some kind of partnership? That's right, Michael. I've recently come into some intellectual property that might interest Parker Tech. I opened my briefcase and pulled out a folder marked Confidential Neural Network Optimization. Mobile AI algorithms. Next generation processing power. Google just validated the technology at $300 million. Michael's eyes lit up. Tech CEOs were like sharks. They could smell profitable innovation from miles away. You developed this? 18 months of work. 7 patents, all approved. The applications are endless. Smartphones, tablets, autonomous vehicles, IoT devices. I slid the folder across his desk. Michael opened it eagerly, scanning the technical specifications. This is remarkable work, Darius. The processing improvements alone could revolutionize our mobile division. I thought you might be interested. Michael was practically salivating. Parker Tech stock had been stagnant for 6 months. Revolutionary AI technology could double their market value overnight. What kind of licensing arrangement are you thinking? Exclusive partnership. Parker Tech gets North American rights. I get 20% of gross revenue from any products using the technology. 20% seems high. Google offered me $300 million for worldwide rights. I'm giving you regional exclusivity for a revenue share. It's the deal of a lifetime, Michael. He was hooked. I could see the calculations running through his head. Billions in potential revenue. Minimal upfront investment. I'd need our technical team to verify the algorithms, of course. Of course. Full due diligence. I wouldn't expect anything less. Michael pressed his intercom. Jennifer, get me David Kim from R&D. Emergency meeting. Right away, Mr. Parker. While we waited, Michael leaned back in his chair, studying me with new interest. I have to ask, Darius, where have you been working on this? Liam mentioned you've had some challenges recently. Perfect opening. I developed everything at the Seattle Public Library, main branch, 3rd floor computer lab. Amazing what you can accomplish when you have unlimited time and no distractions. The public library? When you're homeless, Michael, libraries become your office. Quiet. Climate-controlled, free internet access. I spent 12 to 14 hours a day there for 18 months. Michael's expression shifted slightly. The word homeless always made wealthy people uncomfortable. I didn't realize you were between situations. Grace made it pretty clear at the wedding. Human garbage, I believe she called me. He had the decency to look embarrassed. Grace was emotional. Wedding stress, you know how it is. Of course. David Kim arrived 5 minutes later, Parker Tech's head of research and development. Korean-American, MIT PhD, completely brilliant. If anyone could spot what was really happening here, it would be him. David, I need you to analyze these algorithms. Full technical review, security audit, patent verification. David took the folder, flipped through the specifications. His eyes went wide. Mr. Parker, this is extraordinary work. These optimization protocols could increase our processing efficiency by 45%. How long for complete analysis? 24 hours for preliminary review. 72 hours for comprehensive testing? Michael nodded. Make it priority 1. Cancel everything else. After David left, Michael turned back to me with barely contained excitement. Darius, I think we're looking at a transformational partnership here. Parker Tech could become the dominant player in mobile AI. I hope so, Michael. I really do. Let me ask you something, and please don't take this the wrong way, but do you have proper legal representation for something this complex? I've retained Morrison, Klein & Associates, intellectual property specialists. Michael's face went pale. Morrison Klein was the most aggressive IP firm in Seattle. They destroyed several tech companies over patent disputes. Expensive choice. When you're dealing with $300 million technology, Michael, you don't skimp on legal protection. Smart thinking. I stood up, shaking his hand. I'll wait for David's analysis. Should be very interesting. I'm sure it will be. As I walked toward the elevator, I could hear Michael on the phone, probably calling his own lawyers. Parker's greed was about to destroy him. What they would find in those algorithms would make his blood run cold. David Kim called me at 6:23 a.m. the next morning. His voice was shaking. Mr. Miller, we need to talk, immediately. Good morning, David. How's the analysis going? I can't discuss this over the phone. Can you come in? I'll be there in an hour. I already knew what David had found. The question was whether he'd figured out the full implications yet. When I arrived at Parker Tech, David was waiting in the lobby. Dark circles under his eyes, 3 coffee cups on his desk, the look of a man who hadn't slept. We need to use conference room C, he said. Soundproof. No recording devices. Interesting. David was scared. Once we were alone, he pulled out a thick folder marked Confidential Analysis, Miller Algorithms. Mr. Miller, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Go ahead. Did you work for Miller Innovations between 2019 and 2021? I owned Miller Innovations. Why? David's hands were trembling as he opened the folder. Because 73% of Parker Tech's mobile operating system is built on algorithms that originated from your company. That's interesting. It's more than interesting, Mr. Miller. It's criminal. David spread out dozens of technical documents, source code comparisons, algorithm analyses, patent filings. These algorithms you're offering to license? They're not new technology. They're updated versions of patents that Parker Tech acquired from Miller Innovations in 2021. Acquired or stole. The legal paperwork says acquired. But the timestamps on your development files show you were working on version 2.0 updates 18 months after Parker Tech supposedly bought the original patents. David was brilliant. He'd connected dots that most people would miss. Here's what I think happened, he continued. Parker Tech bought your patents when your company was in financial distress. Fire sale prices, distressed asset acquisition. Legal but ethically questionable. Keep going. But you kept developing the technology. Improved it. The algorithms you showed us yesterday are 47% more efficient than what we're currently using. David pulled out another document. Patent search results from this morning. You've filed 7 new patents based on improvements to your original work. All approved, all valid. And Parker Tech has been using preliminary versions of these improvements for 8 months. Our entire mobile division launched last year using algorithms that now belong to you. I stayed quiet, letting him work through the implications. Mr. Miller, if you wanted to, you could sue Parker Tech for patent infringement. The damages would be enormous. How enormous? David did some quick calculations. Our mobile division generated $47 million in profit last year. If you can prove we used your improved algorithms without permission. I can prove it. Then you could claim every penny, plus punitive damages for willful infringement. What makes you think it was willful? David went very quiet. When he spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper, because I found emails from Mr. Parker to our development team from 6 months ago. He specifically instructed us to enhance the Miller algorithms using publicly available research. He knew we were building on your work, and he knew we didn't have licensing rights for the improvements. David closed the folder. Mr. Miller, I have to ask, why are you showing us this technology? Why offer us a licensing deal when you could just sue us into bankruptcy? I looked at David Kim Brilliant, ethical, probably the only honest person in this building, because I want Michael Parker to hang himself with his own greed. I don't understand. You will. What they found made Parker's blood run cold. The conference room door opened. Michael Parker walked in with 3 lawyers and a very worried expression. Gentlemen, he said, we need to discuss damage control. While Michael Parker was meeting with lawyers, Grace was launching her social media war. The first post went live at 9:47 a.m. on her Instagram account. 2.3 million followers, mostly tech industry wives and Seattle socialites. Urgent warning, con artist targeting our family. Darius Miller is not a tech genius. He's a mentally unstable homeless man trying to extort money from my father's company. Do not believe his lies. She included photos from the wedding me in my Salvation Army suit, looking exactly like what I was. The contrast was perfect for her narrative. The Facebook post was even more vicious. This predator showed up at my wedding and humiliated my family. Now he's claiming he invented technology that my father's company has been using for years. He's desperate, dangerous, and delusional. But Grace's masterpiece was the Twitter thread, how a homeless stalker is trying to destroy my family, 1/47. 47 tweets detailing my pattern of harassment. And she'd hired a private investigator, expensive one, judging by the information quality. Miller was committed for psychiatric evaluation in 2021 after his wife's death. History of depression, anxiety, and reality dissociation episodes. True, but irrelevant. Grief counseling after losing your wife isn't mental illness. He's been living in homeless shelters for 3 years. Shelter workers report delusional episodes where he claims to be working on revolutionary technology. Also true. I had told people I was developing algorithms. They assumed I was crazy. Miller has no technical background. His company failed because he couldn't code. Everything was done by employees he fired during financial difficulties. Completely false, but cleverly constructed. Grace's investigators had found disgruntled former employees willing to lie for money. The posts went viral immediately. Tech Twitter was brutal. Everyone loves watching a homeless man get destroyed for pretending to be important. By noon, I had death threats in my email. People calling me a fraud, a predator, a mentally ill stalker. Grace's followers were sharing my shelter address, encouraging harassment. The Seattle Times picked up the story. Local homeless man claims to own tech patents. Family says he's delusional. Grace gave an interview to Como News. My father-in-law is very sick. We've tried to help him, but he refuses treatment. Now he's making increasingly desperate claims for attention. She was good. Really good. Every statement was carefully crafted to sound compassionate while destroying my credibility. But Grace made one critical mistake. At 2:15 p.m., she posted a video on TikTok. Why we can't let mentally ill people exploit successful families. In the video, she was sitting in her BMW, $147,000 lease payment, license plate Grace 1, explaining how homeless people use fake success stories to manipulate wealthy families. People like Darius Miller prey on guilt and sympathy. They know we feel bad about homelessness, so they create elaborate fantasies about being secret geniuses. It's manipulation, pure and simple. The video had 500,000 views in 2 hours. Grace thought she was winning, thought she'd successfully destroyed my reputation before I could damage her father's company. She had no idea she'd just provided perfect evidence of malicious defamation. At 4:30 p.m., my lawyer called. Darius, have you seen what she's posting about you? Every word. This is textbook defamation. Knowingly false statements published to destroy your reputation, causing measurable financial damage. How much damage? Google's considering pulling their acquisition. They don't want to be associated with someone accused of fraud. That's $300 million in direct damages. Perfect. Perfect? Darius, she's destroying your credibility. She's destroying her family. Get everything documented, screenshots, timestamps, view counts. I want a complete record. Why? Because Grace just signed her family's death warrant. The truth was coming out tomorrow, whether she liked it or not. And when it did, every lie she'd posted would become evidence against her. The Parker Tech Emergency Board meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m., July 9th, 2024. 12 board members, 3 lawyers, 2 patent experts, and a reporter from TechCrunch who'd somehow gotten wind of the story. Michael had tried to keep it private, but when you're facing a potential $47 million lawsuit, word gets out. I arrived at 1:45 in a charcoal gray suit, carrying a briefcase full of evidence that would end Michael Parker's career. Grace was already there. She'd convinced Michael to let her attend family support during a difficult time. She sat in the back corner, filming everything on her phone for another social media post about the delusional homeless man. She looked confident, smug even. Her viral campaign had convinced half of Seattle I was a mentally ill fraud. The board would laugh me out of the room, and she could finally be rid of her embarrassing father-in-law forever. Michael called the meeting to order at exactly 2 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to address the patent infringement claims made by Darius Miller. Before we begin, I want to note that Mr. Miller has been experiencing some personal difficulties recently. Grace smiled from the corner. She'd coached him well. Mr. Miller claims to own patents that Parker Tech has allegedly infringed upon. Our legal team has prepared a response. Parker's lead attorney stood up Harrison Webb from Gibson, Klein & Associates. $500 an hour, specialized in crushing patent trolls and nuisance lawsuits. Mr. Miller's claims are baseless, Webb began. He's a homeless individual with documented mental health issues, attempting to extort money from a successful company through fraudulent patent claims. Webb pulled out printouts of Grace's social media posts. As you can see, Mr. Miller has been living in homeless shelters for 3 years. He has no technical background, no development resources, and no credible explanation for how he could have created cutting-edge AI algorithms. The board members were nodding. This was exactly what they'd expected, a nuisance lawsuit from someone desperate enough to try anything. Furthermore, Webb continued, Parker Tech's algorithms were developed by our internal R&D team, led by Dr. David Kim. We have documentation proving independent development of all disputed technology. Grace was practically glowing. Her social media strategy was working perfectly. Mr. Miller, Michael said, would you like to respond to these allegations? I stood up slowly, opened my briefcase, and pulled out a single sheet of paper. I'd like to introduce some evidence. I handed copies to every board member. Bank statement from Wells Fargo, dated July 8th, 2024. Current balance, $299,700,000. The room went dead silent. This is the proceeds from Google's acquisition of my patent portfolio. 7 algorithms, purchased for $300 million on June 17th. I pulled out the second document. Google's press release, published on TechCrunch, Wired, and the Wall Street Journal. Board member Patricia Williams read aloud, Google acquires revolutionary AI technology from independent developer Darius Miller for $300 million. Grace's smile disappeared. The third document, I continued, is the patent registration for US 10847329 through US 10847335. Filed 18 months ago, approved 6 months ago, validated by Google's acquisition. I walked around the table, making eye contact with each board member. The fourth document is the source code analysis performed by your own R&D team. Dr. Kim's report concluding that 73% of Parker Tech's mobile operating system is built on my patented algorithms. David Kim was sitting at the technical advisor table. He nodded grimly when the board looked at him. The fifth document is the timeline analysis. Your company has been using improved versions of my algorithms for 8 months without licensing rights. I pulled out the final folder, and these are the emails from Michael Parker to his development team, instructing them enhance the Miller algorithms using publicly available research. Michael's face went white. How did you get internal emails? Discovery process in federal court. Your IT department was very cooperative. Grace stood up suddenly. This is ridiculous. He's a mentally ill homeless man. Look at him. Perfect. Exactly what I needed. You're right, Grace. Let's look at me. I pulled out my phone and opened the TikTok video she'd posted yesterday. Played it for the entire room. People like Darius Miller prey on guilt and sympathy. They create elaborate fantasies about being secret geniuses. It's manipulation, pure and simple. Grace's own voice filled the boardroom. That video has 1.2 million views, I said. posted while that Google's $300 million acquisition was public knowledge. I looked directly at Grace. Tell me, Grace, if I'm a delusional homeless man with no technical background, how did Google validate my work with the largest patent acquisition of 2024? She opened her mouth, then closed it. No answer. Mr. Parker, I continued, your daughter has spent the last 48 hours publicly defaming me on social media, calling me a fraud and a con artist, all while knowing that Google had verified my patents with a $300 million purchase. Michael looked at Grace in horror. What have you done? The defamation lawsuit will be separate from the patent infringement case, I said calmly, but both will be filed in federal court by end of business today. Grace was recording everything on her phone, probably planning another social media post about the elaborate scam. Go ahead and post it, Grace. Every video you make is evidence of ongoing defamation. Board member Darius Chen raised his hand. Mr. Miller, what are you seeking in damages? Patent infringement. $47 million in direct damages, plus punitive awards for willful infringement. Defamation. Additional $20 million for reputational damage and interference with business relationships. $67 million total. Minimum. Could be twice that if the jury finds the infringement particularly egregious. Michael Parker, CEO of Parker Tech Solutions, looked at his daughter with complete devastation. Then he did something that surprised everyone in that room. He stood up and bowed. Michael Parker's bow lasted exactly 7 seconds, long enough for every camera in the room to capture it, long enough for his 40-year career to end in complete humiliation. When he straightened up, his voice was barely a whisper. Mr. Miller, on behalf of Parker Tech Solutions, I formally apologize for the unauthorized use of your patented technology. The boardroom was dead silent. 12 of Seattle's most powerful business leaders watching a tech empire collapse in real time. Furthermore, Michael continued, I apologize for my daughter's defamatory statements about your character and mental health. Her actions do not represent this company's values. Grace was still holding her phone, still recording. She looked like she was watching her entire world crumble. We are prepared to negotiate a settlement that fairly compensates you for damages incurred. $67 million, I said calmly. 47 for patent infringement, 20 for defamation damages. Board member Patricia Williams cleared her throat. Mr. Parker, does the company have that kind of liquidity? Michael looked at his CFO, who shook his head grimly. We'd need to liquidate substantial assets, possibly sell the mobile division entirely. Then sell it. The voice came from Grace. She'd finally stopped recording and was staring at her father with pure venom. You're going to destroy our family's company because some homeless bum got lucky with a patent application? Grace, please stop talking, Michael begged. But Grace was past listening. 3 years of looking down on me, 6 months of planning my elimination, 48 hours of public humiliation warfare, it was all collapsing. This is insane. He lived in a shelter. He's mentally ill. One lucky patent doesn't erase 3 years of being human garbage. I pulled out my phone and started a new voice recording. Please continue, Grace. My lawyers will appreciate the additional evidence. That finally shut her up. Mr. Miller, Michael said, would you consider a structured settlement? $20 million immediately, the remainder paid over 3 years? Cash only, full amount, today. The CFO whispered something to Michael, who nodded grimly. It will require emergency asset liquidation, but we can have the funds transferred by close of business. Excellent. I opened my briefcase one final time and pulled out a document I'd prepared that morning. Settlement agreement, $67 million, all claims resolved, complete confidentiality, regarding Parker Tech's patent infringement. The lawyers spent 2 hours reviewing every clause. Grace sat in the corner, no longer filming, staring at nothing. The woman who'd called me human garbage was watching her family's fortune get handed over to the homeless man she'd tried to destroy. At 4:47 p.m., Michael Parker signed the settlement agreement. At 5:23 p.m., Wells Fargo confirmed the wire transfer. Account balance, $366,700,000. As the board members filed out, Michael approached me one final time. Darius, I need you to know when I bought your patents in 2021, I genuinely believed it was a legitimate business transaction. You paid $12,000 for patents worth $300 million. You knew exactly what you were doing. He nodded sadly. I suppose I did. There is one more thing, Michael. What? Your son-in-law is a good man. He deserves better than what your daughter put him through." Michael looked at Grace, who was crying silently in the corner. "I'm afraid Liam's already made his choice about that." 3 weeks later, Liam filed for divorce. The grounds were irreconcilable differences, but everyone knew the truth. Grace's social media war had shown him exactly who he'd married, a woman willing to destroy her husband's father for the crime of existing. Liam moved into an apartment near mine. We had dinner twice a week, slowly rebuilding the relationship Grace had tried to sever. "I'm sorry, Dad," he told me during our first real conversation in 3 years. "At the wedding, I should have said something. Should have defended you. You were in an impossible position, son. That's not an excuse. Grace was wrong, and I knew it. I wanted to fit into her world so badly that I forgot where I came from. Where you came from made you who you are. Don't ever be ashamed of that." Parker Tech Solutions filed for bankruptcy 6 months later. The settlement had gutted their cash reserves, and without the stolen algorithms, their mobile division collapsed. Michael Parker resigned in disgrace and disappeared from Seattle entirely. Grace's social media accounts went dark after the divorce. Her TikTok videos about fake homeless success stories became internet memes, cautionary tales about making assumptions. The hashtag Grace Parker moment started trending whenever someone publicly humiliated themselves through arrogance. As for me, I bought a house in Queen Anne with a view of Elliott Bay. Nothing too fancy, just a place where a formerly homeless father could have dinner with his son without anyone calling security. I established the Helen Miller Foundation for Homeless Innovation, funding technology education programs in shelters across the country. $50 million to prove that genius can emerge from anywhere, even from people society has written off. The foundation's motto, printed on every computer we donated: "Never underestimate the man who works while others sleep," because that's what I learned during those 3 years on the streets. While Grace Parker was posting Instagram photos and planning elaborate weddings, I was writing code that would change the world. While Michael Parker was building his empire on stolen ideas, I was creating something genuinely revolutionary. While everyone else saw a homeless failure, I was becoming the person who would take everything back. Sometimes the most important victories happen in silence, before anyone realizes the game has changed. And sometimes justice takes 3 years to arrive, but when it does, it's absolutely worth the wait.